Welcome back to my Panzer tutorials. This time we're going to be tackling aircraft and Panzer aircraft and how they work and what they can do and what fun you can have with them. You thought tanks firing at tanks were interesting within Panzer? Well, now we bring in the aircraft. Also going to be very interesting because the aircraft rules are, I think they're well crafted, I guess is the way I put it, personal opinion, because they add enough detail to make it very interesting, like it is aircraft coming in, but yet not as much detail to make it, overwhelming and difficult. So I'm going to go through this and kind of highlight some of the key areas, highlight the aircraft themselves because they are a little different from the tanks, and kind of show you how it works and some of the techniques with it. So let's get started. So first off, there's a couple of phases here. There's a number of phases in here. There's the air phases, there's the aircraft movement, aircraft combat, and anti-aircraft with that. And I'm going to go through each of those different topics because each one of them has a little bit different tinge to the whole thing. But when you all put it together, it works. It just basically works, and again, in my opinion. But first, let's start with the aircraft themselves. Let's take a look at the aircraft cards. Now I'm looking at the aircraft for the British, looking at the Bristol Blenheim Mark IV. And you notice this is a little bit different than a tank card. There's a lot less numbers, and it's streamlined to look at the aircraft itself. So you get some information, the name, victory points, again, the engines, there's two 920 horsepower radial engines, speed, so forth and so on. This is just informational stuff here. We also have its armament. It has one 7.7 millimeter in the front and then three 7.7s in the rear. Typical kind of medium attack bomber. One thing that's important over here is our GPD. That's our defense, which is 2S. That's going to be used as part of our anti-aircraft. Now, looking at its attack and what it can attack with, it can strafe and it can bomb. Those are the two lines that we have over here. That's a little different than the tanks, because here we don't really have ranges. Everything is going to be at the same range. There's no range for it. You're going to be basically attacked with the same number, depending upon what it is. You do have a rate of fire, normal. You do have an A number, which is important. That's the ammo number. That's the number of times it can shoot. This is not a number we're rolling. This is a number of times we can shoot. So we can have 3 strafing attacks and 2 bombing attacks. Sighting is optical. It's GP, and that's its firepower here, is 1 and 5. And then we've got the strafing is small arms, and then the bombs are 1 to 8, which is pretty effective. If you look at the tanks and tank armor, it's pretty low, so this is going to give us a higher number, so it's going to be pretty effective when we bomb tanks and other things over there. Looking at the next one, Hurricane Hawker, same type of layout, a little bit different. GPD is a little bit more over here. You see here it can strafe, it can bomb, or it can have rockets. Now, this is one thing that's going to be important when you do set up. The scenario will either tell you what you have loaded, rockets or bombs, or you'll be able to pick, but you've got to pick one. You can either have rockets or bombs. You can't have both. Now, rockets do have a gunnery range, because if you envision them, they're actually being fired off from the aircraft, and the closer they are, the more effective they're going to be. So you can see there here we actually have ranges on here. Now we won't necessarily we will use them, I should say, to mark out the ranges when we do the rocket attacks, and I'll be showing that a little bit later. And you can see the number of attacks they can do. They can do 1 bomb run, 3 strafings, or 2 rocket attacks. Then for the Germans, we're going to come over here. We've got a BF-110, very similar to the Blenheim, and a little bit stronger in defense. Excuse me, 4S. Bombing attack is about the same. Strafing attack is a little bit better. You can see it's got 20 millimeter guns. as well as 4 7.92 millimeter guns there as well, so it's a little stronger in the attack. JU 87B, there's our good old Stuka dive bombers. Now I want to highlight this here a little bit because this is a dive bomber, and you notice in the notes down here at the bottom it says it's a dive bomber. There's going to be a special ruling in terms of how it attacks because of that, within there. With this here, it can strafe. Again, it's just got two 7.92 millimeter guns, so it's very light strafing. And bombing, it can bomb one of three ways. It can either do level bombing, both high and medium, excuse me, and then it can do dive bombing, and you can see the gunnery factor is quite a bit more when it does that on there as well. So we'll go through that as well. Then lastly, we've got the Italians, very similar, but just kind of showing what this is all about. You actually notice that the strafing on the Italian Breda, excuse me, is two 12.7 millimeter, essentially 50 caliber guns on there, and that strafing actually has a GP effectiveness over there. So strafing on vehicles can be somewhat effective with this as well, and then it also can carry bombs. We also have the Fiat CR-42AS Falco, which is a biplane used for attacking, and you can see it can be loaded in a couple configurations. It can either have two 50 caliber machine guns, 12.77 machine guns, or it can have with a bomb load, or it can have four 12.77 millimeter without a bomb load. In other words, it will have pylons under them to hold that instead of the bombs. And that gives it a little bit more firepower when it's strafing over here as well, or it can carry bombs. So those are the planes that we have in Panzer North Africa. Of course, if you're playing the other modules, you also get other ones. So you can get some of the American planes if you're using that, or the French planes if you're using that module there as well. Okay, so those are our planes. So now let's talk about, let me bring up my little sticky note here. Let's talk about attacking and how this actually works. So in Panzer, you will probably have noticed, if you haven't already played with aircraft, is that there is in the where are we here? Come on, bear with me. There we go. Sequence of play. You'll see there's a first attack phase and a second attack phase. First attack phase occurs right after the initiative, right before combat. This is kind of a proactive attack where your planes can potentially attack before anything occurs, combat, movement, etc. And then there's the second attack, which is after everything happens. So you can be reactive to the movement and combat with your airplanes. You can pick and choose and mix and match while you have the airplanes on the board. You don't have to, all stay in one or all stay in the other. It just depends on turn to turn. Now, the only thing you can't do is have an attack in the first phase and the second phase, both in the same turn. So that's the phases, within there. And what those phases will be, we'll go through what the combat and everything will be over there. But you have two phases that you can pick and choose from, to either proactive or reactive to a situation with your combat. Now, as I said before, you do have to pick your payloads for the planes if they have multiple configurations. So you will need to make that determination before the game starts, and have that written down or just noted with your opponent if you're playing face to face, or with another person within there as well. So you do need to do that. Then when it comes to the phases, when it comes to the actual attacking, and oh, by the way, that was another thing I wanted to mention too, is with aircraft within Panzer, typically a scenario will have one side or another having aircraft. You rarely see both sides having an aircraft. And if you do happen to have aircraft, through a homemade scenario or something like that, typically those aircraft will attack independently of each other. So there won't be any sort of air-to-air combat is where I'm getting with this. There's no fighting it out between fighter bombers and such things like that. The aircraft itself are only attacking ground targets, and ground targets are only attacking them if they have anti-aircraft capability. Okay, so that's one thing to note. So flying, now the aircraft themselves, I've got some set up on here, and you see I've got a board set up here, and I'm a little zoomed out here. Let's try to get it in here a little bit so you can see this. I've got our target, which in this case is going to be a good old Panzer 3J over here is going to be attacked by this Blemin coming on the board over here as well. So when it's time for the aircraft to come on board, they'll be lined up on an edge. They can basically come in on any edge of the board, top, bottom, left, right. It really doesn't matter. But they will be aligned to a particular hex row when they're coming in. So they can either go diagonal like I've got this set up here, or they could go vertically, heading up kind of in this direction like that. So you do have that capability, and you pick and choose how you want to do it. But they'll line up on the edge, and they basically fly across the board. They will fly all the way across the board unless they are shot down, of course. Doing so, going across the board, they will set up an attack. Now, I've set this up so I'm in line to attack the Panzer 3J over here, heading down this hex row, this diagonal hex row, going across there. Now, once they've attacked, they will continue. They may attack again on the same turn if they have a target, and if they have spotted it, they can attack it. Or they will just fly off the board. They will just keep moving. They don't have a movement allowance, as you saw on the cards. The cards didn't have any movement allowance on them. So there's no, kind of moving 10 hexes or any hex like that. They just move across the board, potentially attacking as they go. So that's why they're lined up like this, and they just will move, where they want to go on there. Now, a couple other things to make note of with this. When you have an aircraft coming in on the edge of the board, you will also have to note its speed and its altitude. Now, with speed and altitude, you will have a certain amount of things. With speed, and I'll just put these in notes so you can see it, you'll have either fast or slow. Very simple. With altitude, you will have either high, medium, or low. You have to declare those when they come in. They can basically have only one of those for each, the altitude and the speed when they're moving in, and that'll affect certain things that happen. It'll affect bombing runs. It'll affect the anti-aircraft. It'll affect spotting. So that's an important piece of it there to understand, is you need to have those declared for when they come on the board. Okay. And that can vary from turn to turn as well as they're moving in. Now, when the aircraft are coming in, as I said, they will just fly straight in like this to bomb their target. So if I move them up here, they'll just move right in over here and set up for the bombing run. Now, just going to move them back for 1 second. Before that, though, any target has to be acquired, what they call acquiring. And I think I noted that over here. Let me just bring this up. No, I didn't, but it's part of the aircraft movement and combat over here. You will have to have them acquire the targets. Now, acquiring the targets in North Africa is a little bit easier because we don't have a lot of blocking terrain or any type of terrain that's going to be truly inhibiting for them not to see it. This is going to be also different than spotting. When a tank or other units tries to spot each other, it's going to be different from that. And what's going to happen is there's a certain number of hexes out that we'll be able to spot. Now, where we see that is actually on our chart over here, one of our charts, our B chart. And you can see over here we have the AA and aircraft spotting chart. So here you see our speeds, and here we see the altitudes as well as what it takes to acquire that target. So in this case, let's say that I am at a medium height and I am going slow. Okay, so I'm going to go slow and medium is right here. It's the second row. And you notice it takes 10 hexes to acquire this. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I'm one short, but that's okay because if I'm off board, the boards for the standpoint of acquiring and anti-aircraft tracking, which we'll go through in a little bit, it's assumed that they can see off the board. So in this case, coming on the board, they have acquired the target because the 10th hex is off board. Even if I had come in from, say, over here, I would still have acquired because it was presumed that they would be able to see that unit from off the board. So the board in this case, in the case of aircraft, is not the end of the world. It actually extends out however many hexes it needs to actually see that target. So that's why I say in North Africa, we probably will not have a lot of things that won't be seen or won't be acquired in the initial attacks like this. Where it will come into play is if we have a secondary target that we want to attack in the same turn. Once we attack the first one, now we've got to acquire that second one. So if we're flying at medium and medium height and slow, we've got to have another 10 hexes visibility to see them for us to be able to attack them. If we had something close to this tank over here, infantry unit or something like that, we could not strafe it because we would not acquire it in time to be able to strafe it. So that's where those numbers are going to come into play if we decide a secondary target in the same turn. Okay, so that's the acquisition piece of it here. Oh, also notice if they're suppressed, it takes twice as far to acquire it. But let's say he's coming in, he's not been fired upon, he's not been suppressed or anything like that. And we'll talk about anti-aircraft here in a few minutes, as I said. But right now I want to go through the spotting and the kind of the aircraft combat. So what happens here is that he comes on the board, and as I said, he's at a medium height, and we move him all the way up to here. And now he can potentially attack this target. Now, once he's next to the target like this, he can drop his bombs. Now, when the bombs are dropped, they're going to drop in a pattern. And that's diagrammed in the rules itself over here. You can see where the bomb patterns are shown here, depending if it's high level, medium level, or a dive bombing level. We're at a medium level, so what that means is the front two hexes in front of the airplane will actually be the targets for the bombs. So the bombs are going to drop here, and the bombs are dropped here. If there were targets in both, they would be attacked individually. So we would roll for this tank, and then we'd roll for whatever is in this hex here as well, following the GP attack rolls that we saw. Because if you look back over here, going back to my British Bristol Blenheim, they are a GP attack of 5 on that particular target. So what would happen is we would roll 5 versus the German Panzer 3J, yeah, 3J over here, and see if we score a hit. Now the hit is going to be a GP hit. In other words, it's going to be 5 against 2. So we're going to look that up on our GP chart. Where did it go? There he goes. And it's going to be a 5 against 2. So you're going to see it's a 39. It starts out at a 39 or greater to suppress, 68 or greater to be effective. We do have all of our GP modifiers over here, if the vehicle is moving, if it's a P or A type of vehicle, all of this stuff will apply. Also, what will apply to this attack is the modifiers also as part of the AA aircraft modifiers. So in here, you'll see if we're attacking at a medium altitude, we'll actually get a +10 on the attack. So that will be added into our GP modifiers as well as everything else that's on there. So we would attack that way. The same thing for the effectiveness. If we score a hit and it's effective, we'll check our GP effectiveness over here, which is in the way. It's a 1 to 8, as I said before, and we'll look at that based upon our tank defense. Was it a 2, which means that's greater than that, so we will potentially knock that out with an effective roll. We'll also potentially get track hits and damage hits as well, just with the 5 and 10 rule that we have as well. So it's the same process to resolve it as GP as we started with. Okay, and that drops their bombs. So, and that counts as one attack. So, we would mark that off on a scrap piece of paper or something, and that would be our one attack. Same thing if we attacked over here with our bombs here as well. That would count as our second attack, and that would pretty much end our bombing attack. But then we could come back and continue with our strafing attacks, either at something that was on the board here already, if we could acquire them quick enough, or we would just continue off the board. So, over here, I think at medium range, well, actually we couldn't strafe because we're at medium altitude, sorry. We wouldn't be able to strafe because we have to be at a low altitude to actually strafe. So what would happen is this guy would continue on here, eventually flying off the board, right over here. Now this is important in terms of where they fly off the board, because when they come back in, they will come back on the next turn on the same side that they flew off. Now corners are a little bit of an odd thing. They can either come in on both one of the two sides that they flew off on. So they could come back in up at the top or on the right-hand side over here. So that's a little different. If he flew off this way, he could only come in on the top. One little more caveat to that is that if he waited a whole turn, didn't come back on the next turn, but waited a whole turn, then they could come on at any side of the board. And that would be him kind of swinging around, make a large arc to come in wherever he wanted to attack. Okay. But let's say he comes back in, and let's say our tank is still there, or we have infantry or something. Let's say we wanted to have him come in to the north now. So he's up here. And now we're going to put him at a low level because now he doesn't have any bombs. Let's say we dropped all the bombs. He's going to come in at a strafing level. And we could come in, again, either fast or slow. This time I'm going to say fast because maybe there's some anti-aircraft which gets better as you get lower altitude. So he would come in as fast and low, and he would come up here to actually do a strafing run. Now with the strafing run, if we look at our diagrams and our rules, the strafing runs for fast is the 3 hexes in front of the airplane gets actually strafed with an attack. So there'll be attacks on all 3 of the hexes in front of them if there were units there. So again, it's a GP, again, whatever the unit is here, it's going to be that type of attack. So in this case, it's a GP attack. Now this is going to be tougher and probably less effective because it's only a 1 attack and it's small arms. So that means we probably will only suppress him at best if we attacked him over here. But we could strafe him over here for 1 run and then head off and strafe again for another 2 times. Now, with that being said, that gives us a lot of capability for the Blenheim, that 5 attacks across this. Now, one thing to understand too, that an aircraft can only come on for 5 turns. All right, so once they come on, you know, first turn, second turn, third turn, fourth turn, fifth turn, and then they're gone completely. If they have more ammunition left, bombs or bullets, unfortunately it will be lost and you won't be able to use it. Also counted in there is if they went off the board, they stayed off the extra turn, that counts against the amount of time that they would stay, it counts against the 5 turns that they would stay loitering around the battlefield. Okay, so it's important to understand you can't have these aircraft sitting out there all the time just waiting to attack any enemy units over there as well. The last thing I'll put out there is the rockets, the rocket attacks over here. All right, where I said these actually have range. So when we're attacking with these, depending upon the range that we're in, and by the way, I should point out, you know, what is a rocket attack here as well. A rocket attack is going to be when we have an aircraft like this. Let's put them over here, and we'll get rid of our Blummin for a minute. Where's my delete? Looking for eliminated. There we go. So our rocket attack, if we look at our rules here, is actually going to be it'll be 10 hexes after the first hex. So it's basically a range of 2 up to 10 that will be attacked by rockets within a hex line over here. So in this case, if I put my aircraft over here and we just turn it like that, actually back up one, it's going to attack here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All of these hexes could be attacked by rockets going across over here. All right, they could do you know, a rocket attack on here. Now in here we're shooting right at these guys, you know, right here at a point blank range. What that affects is just the firepower. Again, we're not going to be shooting with this. We're not going to be actually rolling with this because you notice it's a GP firepower. We're going to have 8 GP firepower that we're going to be using to attack that tank with. And if we're all the way up to 4 hexes, if we're shooting at 10 hexes, you know, it's only going to be 6 on there as well. And you may have reasons for doing that. You may want to shoot over here at 10 because, and not have anything in front of it, because you may have some anti-aircraft over here that you want to, you know, stay away from and not have any sort of attack or be attacked by them here as well. So there's reasons for positioning your plane just right so that it attacks at the range that you want so that you safely get out of there. Okay, so that's all the attacking with our planes. Now the last piece here that I want to go through is the anti-aircraft combat. Now, so far, I've just shown you about the planes coming in and attacking, but as they come on the board, they can be attacked by anti-aircraft. So let's actually go over here and, whoops, I didn't want to do that. I want to go on and get a gun over here. So let's see, we're dealing with Germans, so let's get our guns. There we go. And let's get 20 millimeter anti-aircraft gun. Let's just position them right here. Just flip them around. Let's see, like that. That's good. And, or actually no, let's put them up here and flip them around like that. There we go. That's better. So let's take a look at the anti-aircraft guns over here, and you will see 20 millimeter flat gun. There we go. You can see this can shoot at an aircraft because it has an AA line on it, as opposed to the anti-tank gun, which doesn't have it. Neither does this, neither does this, neither does this, neither does this. But aha, the 88 can fire at aircraft as well. Of course, it was an anti-aircraft gun as well. So those are the 2 guns from the German perspective that can shoot at it, and this actually gives us, you know, the firepowers that are going to shoot at the planes. So now, for this to shoot at an airplane, one of the things that's going to be important with this, let's get over to the markers, is that it's going to first need an overwatch. Anti-aircraft must be firing. If they had a fire marker, they could not shoot. They have to be in an overwatch mode to shoot at the aircraft. Why? Because the aircraft is moving. The aircraft is not going to be subject to any type of fire commands, whether it be short halt or fire, because it it's not going to be on the board at that particular point in time. But the overwatch command allows the anti-aircraft gun to fire on this. So when you're picking out your commands, if it's a turn that aircraft have either come on or been on, or there's a chance they could come on, you may want to consider your anti-aircraft guns set up with overwatch commands as part of the command phase, because you will not be able to have a chance to adjust that once your opponent declares that an aircraft is coming on board, and they don't have to do it until the aircraft phase, unless the scenario specifies it, of course. But we've got our command phase, which is set up here, and then our aircraft phase, which is down here, which means you got to set up your commands first. So you got to play a little bit of a guessing game here, and part of the fun of Panzer is those commands that you've got to place and try to figure out. So anyways, after being Overwatch, now once they're in Overwatch, now they've got to acquire the target. So when it comes on the board, it's going to need to acquire the target, and again, that's dictated by those charts that we saw before. The anti-aircraft aircraft spotting chart, and you can see there's a tracking chart. This is saying what this is, how many hexes it takes, movement hexes it takes for them to see this particular aircraft. Now, if it's coming on the board like it is over here, it's pretty much been acquired. Again, at the end of the world, this is not the end of the world with the edge of the board. They can come right in, and they are still spotted at this point. So once they get on the board, even at this hex, they could be fired upon. So here I could actually shoot, but let's check the range. Range is 12, and I think this only has a range for anti-aircraft of 11. So can't shoot at them yet because of range, not necessarily because of spotting. But I could do here. Come on, there we go. I could do here, and all the hexes up there. Now I may want to wait till he's right here, because this is going to give me the best range before he shoots. And at this point, he's at a range of 6. And come on. There we go. And that would be a medium range over here. It's still got a 1 firepower, but at least we've got a good chance of hitting him, because we do have to factor in the range when we're gonna hit him. So he would be firing at 1. I think this is the Hurricane Hawker. Yeah, he's got a 3. So again, we go back to our GP table, back over here, and calculate a 1 attack on a 3 defense. So it's 59 to 84. And again, all the other GP modifiers would apply. So things like moving, moving doesn't apply. The P and A type vehicles, it's not, because if you notice from the card itself, that's actually an S type. So that's not going to apply here at all. But things like short haul, damaged, and stuff like that will apply. And also, it's on the other chart. I wish that was all on the same page, but not well. But then also too, this would apply if the AA is versus fast speed at high altitude or at low altitude, they'd get a plus modifier. So that would affect, what our final number is over here. And then they take their shot, see if they get a suppressed or an effective roll, again, just like any other GP shot. And the results you get, you're going to either get no effect, which means nothing happened, continues on. You can get the aircraft is suppressed, or an effective result, which could be either a damaged or a destroyed result with that. Again, the rules of 5 and 10. If 5 or 10 come up on the low dice, then that's going to just damage the aircraft, and it's just be damaged. There's no hull damage or turret damage or anything like that. It's just damaged. If it's not a 5 or 10, then it's going to be eliminated. Basically gets shot down. And another neat little trick behind this, a little bit of crunchiness with this, is when it gets shot down, it actually crashes into the ground. And it's simulated over here as well. You'll see that in the eliminated rule. What happens is that if it is shot down, you roll a D10 7 like this, and depending on its altitude, it crashes that number of hexes ahead of that. Now in this case, he was at low altitude, so that's actually going to be cut in half. So it's going to be 3 hexes. So you go 1, 2, 3, and crash right there. Now if this tank was there, that tank would be attacked by a GP factor of 15 for the crashed aircraft. So you can potentially crash the aircraft and still damage other units or anything that's in the hex. Now, there is no kamikazes in this in the rules for this. All aircraft that crash have to be shot down. You can't just crash your aircraft into a tank to get points or try to win the game that way. So just be aware of that on there as well. Also, most anti-aircraft guns, and I think the 20 millimeter is here for Germany, is yeah, it's a 360 mount. So it basically can fire in any direction. Again, the Overwatch will apply as a GP factor. So if the aircraft was over here and it was moving, it could shoot at it. We would just flip this all the way around so that it's, whoops, one more back there. It would now be shooting this way. There's no bonuses for, shooting in front, behind, or anything like that. It doesn't get that as sophisticated as that. So that is pretty much all of aircrafts. And oh, actually, one more thing. I totally forgot about this one. Is the Stukas. I wanted to mention about the Stukas and the Ju-87s, and I wanted to show that because there's one neat little factor here with them that needs to be noted. So let's just pretend for a moment that here's our Stuka, and let's just turn him like that. Let's say he's coming down the road. We should probably get a British tank to attack. So let's just get Mark 1 Crusader. That'll work, and let's just say he's right there. So with the Stuka bombing, its bomb radius, if we look at our rules, is 1 hex in front. The hex right in front of it. Now, a couple things with the Stuka. First off, when it's defining its altitude, it's always going to come in at a high altitude. So when it comes off the board, it always comes in at a high altitude and stays that way. If it comes over to do a dive bombing attack like I'm doing over here, what's going to happen is it's going to do its attack just like we said it would, bomb it, get the results, but then as it moves out of its attack and off the board, it's now going to be at a low altitude. So it has moved from a high altitude to a low altitude, simulating the diving effect of the dive bombing attack. So that's one thing to note on there. Now the bonus for that going from high to low is the fact that we do a dive bomb. We bomb once, but we get a factor of 10 to attack that tank upon. So in this case, what we were talking a A9 Mark 1. So that British tank tracks. There we go. Here we go. Is actually just a 1A, so it's a 10 to 1 on there. So the attack factor is going to be pretty crazy here. It's going to be 10 to 1. So it's 14 or greater to suppress. So that's basically a 86% chance to suppress them, and a 48 or greater to destroy them. Basically a 52% chance of destroying them without the modifiers up front. So they've got a good chance of actually, knocking out that tank with a dive bombing run like that. So with that said, that is it. So hopefully you like this. Hopefully it's informative to you, and you can go out and start using your Panzer to attack your tanks with aircraft. Look forward to seeing you on the next one, and appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you on the next one.